this awesome channel, the Spiffy Nerd Herder channel. Today, the movie was the one, the only Goldeneye James Bond. This was Pierce Brosnan's first outing as the 00 secret agent, and it is definitely one of my favorite Bonds. So I definitely want to know what you guys think of it. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to watch Goldeneye is that today is Goldeneye and tomorrow is Casino Royale. They are very different Bond movies in tone, in style. The person playing it, of course, is different. Goldeneye, Pierce Brosnan. Casino Royale is Daniel Craig. But the reason I wanted to look at it is because, for two reasons. They each had the first outing of Bond, for the first outing for an actor as the title character. And they were both done by the same director, Martin Campbell. So Martin Campbell is a pretty old school director. I think he's like in his 70s now. But he has done Goldeneye and Casino Royale. He also did 2011's Green Lantern. So he's had some misses, but he is a great filmmaker. So Dennis, what is up? Goldeneye. And yeah, you better believe it. Let's see here. N64, baby. I think that's the N64. It might be a revamp of the GameCube or something. But I wanted to have the GoldenEye game because if you grew up in the 90s with N64, GoldenEye was the shiznit. I mean, it was one of the greatest games ever. Gaming or what? I love this game, as you should. So we're talking the movie, but I had to put that up there because I probably spent 27 million hours playing this game. Whether it's slappers only or golden gun or whatever. I mean, what's your favorite mode on N64? Honestly, when I was just looking for a still to put up for the thumbnail, I saw it. I'm like, oh man, I want to play that game now. So beautiful game, beautiful game. But one of the things that's awesome is, I loved this level on the game, the Russian level, and this in the movie is truly one of the great introductions of Bond. We just see him running. We never really see his face. He's always running past the camera. I'm just going to kind of jump ahead here, for the whole copyright nonsense. But and he bungee jumps off of a dam, and yet we still have not seen his face. Of course, we know it's a new James Bond. He does his thing, still in the shadows. We get a close-up of his eyes, so we get a little bit. We know he's breaking into a Soviet missile base. Still, again, silhouettes. This guy is on the John. He hears a noise, and boom, gets slapped in the head. So we can watch that one more time. But he hears a noise, and sorry, or I beg your pardon, I forgot to knock. And so it's a great introduction for this first Bond. So if you're just joining us, the reason I wanted to watch Bond today and tomorrow is that these movies have two similarities. One, today was Goldeneye, Casino Royale is tomorrow. They are a movie where it's the actor's first time playing James Bond, Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig, and they are both done by the exact same director, Martin Campbell. The only biggest difference, though, is that Casino Royale was like a reboot of Bond. Totally different style, tone, everything. So let's see here. Everything or Nothing was another great Bond game. I never played that one, but I heard good things. I was such a purist when it came to Goldeneye, but when it was free for all, or I love teams when you got to go 2-1-2, and this was the original screen looker game, right? Like this was the first game where you could get caught for screen looking, and it was great. All right, so Dennis, you're yeah. So this is not N64 Goldeneye. My little background here. It was just the image I chose, or that I found. All right, let's see here. 006 was great. Yeah, so 006 was a fantastic character. Of course, it's Sean Bean, truly a great actor. Nowadays, he's just known as the dude who's gonna die, but he does such a good job in this film, from going from a 00 agent to the main villain of the film, and it was so cool to see that. We kind of get a little vestiges of that in the newer James Bonds with Javier Bardem's character, where he's an ex-00 agent or an ex-agent for M. Guys, if I were in charge of, or if I were to do a James Bond movie, probably I'm out of time for this, but I would want to do a James Bond movie with Sean Connery as the villain. I mean, just everyone can just hang up their hats now because that would be the coolest movie ever. Okay. Daily Scientist says James Bond movies never appealed to me, but I'll hang in the stream anyway. I will comment if the stream goes off on a Star Wars tangent, as these streams usually do. That is a true fact. So one of the things I noticed, it's been over a decade easily since I have seen the Goldeneye film, and one of the things I really noticed while watching it this time is how pithy the dialogue is. It's always pithy comics or clever retorts that Bond has, like it's all about that. Like for instance, when Xenia dies, Xenia Onatop is a girl who's very sexual and always is trying to. She suffocates all of her victims, and she dies by being basically crushed and squeezed herself in tree limbs by a helicopter. And after she dies, you see her up there, and Bond says she always did enjoy a good squeeze. And so it's like there's comments like that, and the movie's just filled with them. And Alec Trevelyan, who's 006, even calls him out at one point, and when Bond finds out that Alec is still alive, and let's see here. In this scene, in this cool kind of Russian statue graveyard, he's like, "What's the matter, James? No pithy remark, no, clever comeback or whatever." But when we watch Casino Royale tomorrow, it's totally not like that anymore. There's a few here and there, but it's not the same kind of cheesiness that Bond really, came to be. Especially like with Roger Moore, just some of it is so over the top and so cheesy. But a lot of people like that, and that was the fun of James Bond. So there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, I definitely enjoy it too. But I really like the new James Bonds also. Probably even more. Like Skyfall and Spectre are easily and Casino Royale. I mean, I love those movies so much, and I'm super excited for No Time to Die. So Dennis says Sean Bean is the reason that you watch Game of Thrones in season 1, but you give up because he dies. Boromir, he dies. Now, Boromir, though, is a freaking legend because he gets like 27 arrows, and they're all like the diameter of a quarter. Okay, I love the Americans show up at the end of the movie in case Bond fails. And see, that's another example of kind of this Bond thing that they've got going on. Where they start kissing, and she's like, "James, what if somebody's watching us?" And he's like, "There's not a person for 25 miles." And Wade shows up, who's the CIA guy, and you gotta actually watch that. And they're in the middle of this field, and turns out they're amongst all these Marines. And so it's that James Bond. That's what James Bond was known as. And so as I watched Goldeneye today, I wasn't digging all of that. I wasn't digging the cheesiness of it all because I've gotten so entrenched in the Daniel Craig James Bond, which is much more grounded, much more, when I say grounded, much more realistic, much more, the dialogue's more realistic, the plots are more realistic. Probably one of the reasons that I didn't quite love, and that I think a lot of people didn't like Quantum of Solace, is that the plot kind of became that little more fantastical plot again. But because Goldeneye used to be one of my favorites, and I enjoyed it, totally. I love this movie, but I found myself not loving it quite as much. But you have, when you got this going on, I mean, a tank chase. How can you not love that? That's just classic James Bond. Okay, so if you got any other comments about the film? And you got this Russian general who's saying, use the bumper. That's what it for. That's what it's for, to ram into people. So let me get to my notes here so I can kind of see other things that I noticed. One of the main things that I've already talked about is just like in Casino Royale, and we'll see it tomorrow, is that Martin Campbell introduces the character without seeing his face. So you don't see James Bond's face until an opportune moment. He does this exact same thing with Daniel Craig tomorrow, where Daniel Craig will be sitting in the shadows as he's having a conversation, and will only be seen kind of at an opportune moment. So, and then we learn more about his character as he's driving with this girl, and he's showing off, and he's uh, racing this kind of other hot girl, driving a Ferrari, and we don't discover that this girl's a psychologist meant to evaluate Bond until like the kind of the end of the scene, and I just thought that was cool. But all right, but here's the big thing. Probably my favorite scene, honestly, is once we get to M. So M is, if I'm sure you're familiar, M is the leader of the MI6, which is like the basically the CIA for those people across the pond. Um, and when he's talking with her, I really liked it because M is now a woman. So up to this point in James Bond lore, M has always been a man. And as he gets into the office with Judi Dench, I mean, it's Judi Dench, come on. Judi Dench calls out Bond for being sexist, for being misogynistic, for being cavalier. And she straight up says, if you don't think I got the balls to send you to your death, you're wrong. And so I liked this scene because it was cool to see a character who physically has nothing on James Bond, but kind of status-wise, because she is his boss, has everything over him. And it was interesting to see how Bond reacted to that, because you can tell in Pierce Brosnan's performance that people don't talk to James Bond this way. And I really liked it, and it reminded me of why I'm so enjoying Daniel Craig's Bonds, because it's getting so much more into his character as an individual. Not necessarily his backstory, but what makes James Bond tick. Why is he the way he is? I mean, with Casino Royale, we discover basically why he is a womanizer and is afraid of commitment. Because, spoiler, the girl he falls in love with and commits himself to turns out to betray him. And so you learn why he doesn't trust anybody. And it's pretty cool. So I've really enjoyed that. So Dennis says that it's campy. Thank you. That's a perfect adjective to describe Bond movies. They are campy, all the way kind of up until the Daniel Craig. And Goldeneye is no exception. Although it was a little less, they did tone it down quite a bit from like the Roger Moore and even a little bit the Timothy Dalton ones. But okay. Again, what are some of your favorite scenes in this movie? It's got a lot of great ones, or even some one-liners, perhaps. But anyways, I love this scene with M and Bond, but at the end, you learn that she's not, some heartless person, because as he walks out, she says, basically, "Come back alive." Okay. Like I said, as I always watch movies, I take notes, and one of the things that I noticed, this is super simple and it's kind of dumb, but I really just enjoyed this shot. So Natalia is going to a church to meet with Boris, who is another fellow Russian who survived this big attack that she was also a survivor of. And as she walks into the church, we see the exterior that we just saw, and then she walks into this pretty cool close-up. And I just really liked, like I said, this is super simple, but I really liked the use of foreground in this shot with the candles. It's just such an interesting shot to me, because you got, the heat distortion that the candles are causing. The lighting is interesting, and then of course you see the source of the candles. Whether or not that's the actual source of the candles, who the freak cares? But it was just an interesting way to, I mean, these were probably the source of the candles, these ones on the candelabras right here. It was just a really cool way to introduce her into the scene. And it was a great use of foreground. So I was digging it. There's another shot of foreground that I'll get to here in a second. But I thought it was really cool. Actually, let's go to that while we're on it. So later, when Boris, who's basically a traitor, is trying to, here it is trying to prevent the Goldeneye satellite from coming through and burning up in the atmosphere. He's like on the computer. And let's see here. here he's fighting with Alec, who's 006, yada, yada, yada. Let's see. Okay, right here. Close at least. Okay, come on. Where are you? Where are you? Sorry. I think it's worth it to see. So. It's supposed to be a very intense scene while this is going down. All right, so cool shot, cool shot. Where are you? This is killing me. Sorry, guys. There it is. There it is. Just a cool. I just thought it was a super cool shot. How in the foreground is the computer, and as it dollies behind the computer, the bottom half of the shot is the computer. The upper half is kind of that close up of the eyes. And I thought it was awesome. I think I may have lost it, but whatever. Okay, whatever. All right, so Jaden, what's up? Jaden and I had a good conversation today. Candles always have so much cinematic value. What a good shot. I totally agree. The cool thing about candles is the light they cast also. And it's that warm light, and it really gives it a nice cinematic tone to it. A word to the wise, though, when you're doing a lot of student films, particularly, they just use regular incandescent bulbs, and they won't white balance to those bulbs. So everything looks really perhaps orange, and that's not good. So don't do that. Okay, tragic. Goldeneye says it's such a good movie, and the N64 game is also a classic. 100% agree. I think my favorite level was the I don't even know what it was called. It was the control room, the Goldeneye, this base or whatever. I loved that. Of course, I mean, this one too. The opening scene room was amazing because it's just great. Okay, so those are kind of some of my main thoughts about the film as I watched it. I wasn't digging the campiness like I used to, 10 years ago when I probably last saw this movie. It might even be longer than that. I still love Pierce Brosnan, though. I mean, he's still my boy when it comes to James Bond. I think he's debonair. He's just great. So he's suave. Well, he's James Bond. Okay, so so if you haven't seen this, check it out. Tomorrow's Casino Royale. I don't really have much more to say about Goldeneye unless somebody else has something to say. And then we'll compare the difference. Again, same director, Goldeneye and Casino Royale, but they're drastically different films. The one thing I will say is somebody mentioned Alec Trevelyan, who is 006, and the great character that he was. He is a 00 agent. He's a friend of James Bond's. But we learn that his parents were betrayed by the British government after World War II, and because of that, he has a grudge against England. And he wants to basically use an EMP blast to destroy all of London's electronic records and steal a bunch of money. It's a cool villain. It's something that works. The idea of somebody being betrayed and going for revenge it's a common trope, we can say, in film. Somebody said this was going to go into Star Wars. Anakin Skywalker fits into this, where he feels betrayed by the Jedi, and he turns against them. At least that's part of the reason he turns. Javier Bardem's character in, which one was it, Skyfall, it's basically the same thing. He feels betrayed by M, and so he goes against MI6. What are some other ones of characters that feel betrayed and go against their former friends? I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty out there, but it's an idea that works. Okay, so are there any Pixar movies on the watch list? I just went on a Pixar marathon, or as I like to call it, Jiznep. Am I reading that right? All right, Pixar marathon on Disney Plus. Yeah, I'm thinking we got to do Onward because I've never seen it and it's out on Disney Plus. So yeah, on last Saturday, Toy Story 3 was an option because I love Toy Story 3. It's my favorite. I think Coco might be my favorite Pixar movie. But I think I'm going to put Onward on the list for next week for sure because, well, I've never seen it, and I've heard it's good. Are there any other movies that people want to see? So on the list, you can if you want, go in the video description and you can pull up the list. Let me see here. Open my browser. I forget what's on the list. And it changes. Like I changed today's at the last minute. But we have, oh, my computer will just load. Sorry. Yeah, tomorrow's Casino Royale. And then for Friday and Saturday, I got Ben-Hur. I might change that. Maybe I'll change that to Onward. I was thinking Ben-Hur just because if you haven't seen Ben-Hur, you got to rethink your life because, and I'm talking the original Ben-Hur. Don't worry about the remake. The remake was no bueno. But let's see here. So Dennis says, never saw Coco or Onward. Definitely, you got to watch Coco. I mean, I love Coco like with a fiery passion. I just absolutely adore that movie. Let's see here. Yeah, I want to put Onward on there because I've never seen it. Ben-Hur is long. Ben-Hur is a freaking long movie, which is why I split it up in 2 days because it's like a 4-hour-long movie. But it's amazing. I mean, I'm literally blown away by that movie every single time I watch it. Just everything from the action to the characters is so awesome. Ben-Hur is another character, although he's a protagonist that gets betrayed and comes back for redemption. So that's kind of another. It's just a storyline that works in films. So we have that quite often. You know, we have like the Count of Monte Cristo with Edmond Dantes, who he's probably the most famous example of somebody who gets betrayed and comes back for kind of like a righteous revenge. Alec Trevelyan is the opposite. He's the tragic, flip of the coin where he gets betrayed and comes back for, reviling revenge or something. Okay, so yeah, maybe we can move Ben-Hur and get a Pixar movie on Friday and on Saturday, because I would like to see Onward. We're definitely going to talk Clone Wars on Friday because the last episode of Clone Wars was awesome. I'm very interested to see where the Siege of Mandalore goes. So Jaden says, I'd love to see your take on Incredibles or Spider-Man 2 by Sam Raimi. That's a good idea. I'll jot those down as options. Spider-Man 2, and then we got Onward. I'm just writing them right on the list. So maybe we could get some good stuff here. Perhaps Incredibles. I'll put on Coco too. Okay. Trying to think. Any other films? So Dennis says, what's the best version of Count of Monte Cristo? I don't know. There's a ton of versions. The one I grew up watching was the Jim Caviezel one and the Guy Pearce one. I love that movie. I actually haven't seen any of the other ones, so I probably should. Richard Harris plays the old man in Chateau d'If with Edmund. Richard Harris, of course, is the guy who plays Dumbledore, the original Dumbledore in Harry Potter 1 and 2. Great actor. Just straight up top notch. So the other films I kind of wanted to look at was Dunkirk by Christopher Nolan. I want to look at a Nolan film. What's your favorite Nolan film? My favorite is Prestige, but I absolutely love... we did watch Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, so I shouldn't say we haven't watched a Nolan film. But you can just not go wrong with any Christopher Nolan film. I don't have access to the director's cut. I didn't even know there was a director's cut. I just have the straight up normal DVD. But I'm sure it's streaming somewhere. But back to Christopher Nolan, I was thinking maybe Inception because it's Inception, or Prestige, because Prestige is just a masterclass of twist. I love the twist. I remember when I first saw Prestige in the theater, I literally just sat there after the movie was done because I couldn't move because I was so blown away by it, and I was just like, I'm never going to make a movie like that. I probably never will. But it's also a great example of somebody using a book to create something great. You know, it's adapted from the book. Jaden says Inception. Inception is amazing. I mean, when everybody saw that, I was in college when I saw that. Everybody was their mind was blown. I mean, the debate on whether or not Cobb is dreaming at the end is a debate that rages till this day. I have my personal opinion based on what actors have said and what is in the film with the Cobb's ring and stuff, but it's great. Okay, top 3 Pixar movies according to Dalek are WALL-E, Up, and Coco. You know, I'm not gonna lie, Dalek, I'm not a huge WALL-E fan. I don't know what it is. I just never really got into it. Granted, I've only seen it I think once, and it was a long time ago. So maybe I gotta give it another shot. Maybe I can throw that on the list. We got Interstellar. I mean, Interstellar. I think I've only seen once, which I'd like to see it again because it was such a good film. It's really long, if I remember. Maybe that's why I've never watched it again. I don't know. I like Up too. Big fan of Up. Pete Docter is a great director. The man runs Pixar now and is directing a new movie. I don't know how a man is capable of doing such miraculous feats. And I, too, am anxious for the new movie Tenet. I mean, what is it? Like the idea that they're like angels or like dead secret agents or something like that. I mean, it already sounds a little bit better than the Rest in Peace department, you know, with Ryan Reynolds and the dude, Jeff Bridges. But you know it's going to be legit. I'm super excited for it. I'm kind of nervous and anxious to see how it gets dealt with all the theaters being closed. As far as I know, it has not been pushed back yet. You know 100% it is not going to be released on a video on demand. Christopher Nolan will never do that. He would rather probably wait 5 years to release this movie in the cinema. It's just not his style. He won't do it. If he did, it would not be his decision. So let's see here. Yeah, I think those are good additions. Spider-Man 2 I really enjoy. Again, because of the character you get into with Spider-Man and his difficulties with Mary Jane. Incredibles, of course. There's just such a wonderful character arc for Mr. Incredible. Coco, it's just, I mean, that movie's unbelievable. I can't say enough about that movie. Okay. I'm probably biased because WALL-E was the first movie I've seen, and I've seen it a gazillion times. It's my second favorite movie of all time, behind Revenge of the Sith. That's bold. That's bold. Yeah, all I really remember from WALL-E is the Hello Dolly song as he's cleaning up trash, and the really big, chubby people with little toes. So I gotta watch it again. All right. So again, Goldeneye is today. Very campy, but it's James Bond. It's awesome. Tomorrow is Casino Royale. Totally different James Bond movie. Totally different tone. Much more grounded. We'll see what goes down in Bond Town. So I think that's it for tonight. We added some good names to the list. I'll make some adjustments to the rest of the movie watch list. Again, if you have suggestions, feel free to just message me on Instagram at @SpiffyNerdHerder, or you can just comment on the video. So thanks again for watching. It's always great to. I love how you guys are always constant commenters and stuff because it makes it fun. I feel like I know. Yeah, like I said, I even got to talk to Jaden today. It was pretty cool. So WALL-E was a cheap imitation of Number 5 from Short Circuit. I've never seen that movie. I've never even heard of that movie. I'll check it out. Number 5 from Short Circuit. I'll check it out. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks again. Have a great night. Stay safe. The heat wave's coming, so stay safe with that, even though you're probably all inside. But hope the pandemic ends soon, guys. So remember, my cardinal rule is to stay spiffy, even do your hair while you're inside, because you got to stay spiffy. And remember to not do anything I wouldn't do twice.